So for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Charlotte Hoods and I'm 30 years old. I'm from a wee village outside Town called Coke. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister, so there were 6 of us kids all together, and it was never a dull day in our house, and I wouldn't change it for the world. We grew up in a very strict home. Is it off? It's okay. I believe that we were a Christian family, but looking back at our upbringing, I'm not so sure. My childhood was filled with abuse that caused us a lot of trauma. My siblings and I went through a lot of things that no child should ever have to go through. Most of my siblings are still recovering to this day. Don't get me wrong, my childhood was filled with a lot of happy memories, but as I got older, I realised that things weren't always as they seemed. There were a lot of things going on in my family household that I was being guarded from. We lived in an area where there was a lot of paramilitary activities, so that's kind of what I was brought up around. My dad had PTSD from the troubles in Northern Ireland, and I remember him being in Hollywell, so a number of events took place as a reminder of his past, and it took a negative impact on our family. Going on to my life in primary school, I was always really into drama, and I always wanted to be a drama teacher because I'm a drama queen. So when there was auditions for plays, I was always the first in line. To me, it was a good way of expressing my emotions. I always felt really special on the run up to the school performances, and I felt like I fitted in somewhere. I was always really outgoing whenever I was younger. During this time, I remember that life was quite bad at home. My mum and dad's relationship was getting mostly bad, and it was having a detrimental effect on us kids. I don't have a lot of memory from the primary, but from what I do remember, it was your normal everyday childhood, what I thought was normal anyway. Then going on to high school, I was a little ginger girl with curly hair, and I made friends very quick. I was friends with teachers, I was excelling in all my classes, I just loved going to school. Then going on to about 3rd year, I started to hang about with a new group of friends. They were the popular girls. So I left my old friends behind and tried to keep up with their style, their dramas, talking about boys and girls, sneaking on nights out. It eventually came to a time where I realised that I didn't fit in with them at all. Talking about boys and makeup wasn't for me, so I left them and I began to fall into the wrong crowd of friends, where I was introduced to drinking and cigarettes. Every single weekend we were using all the money that we could find around our houses to buy drink and cigarettes and lie in the field so drunk that we couldn't even walk. It started to become the one thing I would look forward to every single weekend. I became someone I didn't even know. I would get suspended from school, I wouldn't listen in class, and I would argue with the teachers. I was a complete menace, to be honest. I came to do my GCSEs, and to be honest, I couldn't have cared anything else about them, nor did I care about my future, because I didn't see much of the future ahead for me. Things started to get really bad at home between my mum and dad, and it began to consume my mind. I didn't want to be home, so I tried more, drinking more, and trying to forget about all the things that were happening in my home life and the things happening inside my head. Then after 23 years, just before my 18th birthday, my mum and dad began the process of a very messy divorce. It affected my brothers, my sister and I so badly. We felt like we were being pulled from the close, and I began to realise just how badly things had affected my whole life. My mum left my dad and moved us an hour way up to Lisburn outside Belfast. I remember being heartbroken. I had to leave everything I ever knew, my job, my friends, my whole life. I tried settling in Lisburn, but I was still out drinking with a new crowd and misbehaving. Over time, I realised I missed back home. I missed my friends and I missed my old life. I wanted some normality back, so eventually I moved back down to live with my dad and my little brother back in Coke. There was a night in 2013 when I was out in front of my dad's house with a cup of tea, and I heard a shouting coming from next door. When I went to check it out, there was a man that had been badly beat up and he was unconscious, so I went and checked him, and when he refused to go in the ambulance, I took him home to where I knew he was safe. The next day I was out the front again, and the same man with 2 black eyes came walking towards me, thanking me for helping him for the night before. And from that day on, we were attached to him. No one had ever shown me so much affection. He said all the right things, he was protective of me, and he made me feel safe. I was absolutely smitten by him. A couple of months into my relationship, my dad and I had an argument which caused me to leave and move in with my boyfriend. I was so excited spending every day together, we were inseparable. Then the months had begun to pass, and I started to notice that he either had to be drinking alcohol or smoking cannabis, and when he didn't have money for either, he would lash out at me over almost anything. I tried hard to diffuse situations, and he would hit me and say the most horrible things about me, about how I look, and about my family. When he didn't have money for alcohol, he would disappear for days at a time and come back even angrier than he was about it. He would trail me around the house, spit and nip and choke me and grab my face, but the next day he would always apologise and I would forgive him. This went on for a couple of years. I didn't know what to do. I felt so trapped because I couldn't go back to my dad's because my family were so angry at me because I left everyone and lost everything for him. And I couldn't go to my mum's because she was with a partner who didn't like her kids. It came to January 2015 and I found out that I was pregnant. I thought this was changing. We were both over the moon. And then after the novel day had worn off, he would fall back into his old habits. He would promise me the word one night and then get nasty and aggressive the next. One night he had been out drinking all day and he came home and kicked my stomach and told me that he would kick the baby out of me because while he was away he thought I was cheating on him. One evening, or at 10.5 weeks pregnant, I had started to bleed. I went to hospital for them to confirm my worst nightmare. I was having a miscarriage. My granny died around the same time, so I took comfort in the fact that they were both together, safe in the arms of Jesus. Once it passed, and I had planned an escape to leave him. But before I could make my escape, I found out that I was pregnant again. I was absolutely devastated, and there and then I made up my mind I wasn't going to keep the baby. How could I bring a baby into this? I would be tied to him forever. It was the most terrifying time of my life. I was only 20 years old, and I didn't know how to look after and protect myself. How could I protect the baby? I would be left to do it all on my own, and I just knew it. So as the weeks passed, I saved my wages from work to get a boat over to Liverpool and have an abortion at South Manchester private clinic. I had everything mapped out to my T, including why I was going to tell everyone that I had had a miscarriage. The date came closer, and to be honest, I was excited to get it over and done with, so I wasn't pregnant anymore, and as selfish as that sounded, I was excited that my life wasn't going to be over, and I would have no more ties to him. I just wanted to get on with my life. I was young, and I had so many ambitions, and I always dreamt of being a nurse. It came to the day my sister and I were travelling to South Manchester, and I remember my sister telling me that I didn't have to go through this and that I could be a single parent and that I'd never be alone. But I remember telling her I can't be stuck to him any longer and he would either kill me or the baby, and it was my body and my choice. Although deep down I knew what I was doing was going to be so cruel, I didn't care about that. I thought what I was doing was the right thing, but looking back I can see how selfish I was being. I arrived at the abortion clinic. Whoever comes with you stays downstairs and all the patients are sent upstairs. They don't call you by your name for confidentiality reasons. Your number and your colour. I won't ever forget that it was Purple 27. I got called to be questioned as to why I was doing it, and I said I was going to be a single parent, and I just got the guts to leave an abusive relationship, and I got sent to get on and get my blood done. I started to get very scared now because I could see other women waking up from the anaesthetic, and it was like something in a movie, them lying drugged up, rolling around the bed, and I knew that was going to be me, and I would have to to sleep because I was almost 12 weeks pregnant at the time. My heart was pounding when I got called for my scan. The woman did the scan and asked me to go back out to the waiting room to be called for my surgery. I happened to look down as I was fixing my clothes back on, and she was struggling to put my scan photo into my nose folder for the surgeon, and I seen that the baby properly formed in the room. And that's when I changed my mind. God definitely had his hands on me and that baby there and then. This rush of protection and love came over me like nothing I had ever felt before. I asked the nurse if I could go down and speak to my sister, and I ran and grabbed her and asked her to leave the clinic. And I told her that I was going to keep the baby. We stayed crying and she helped me for the first time in my life. I realised that I needed my sister more than ever, and I knew that the decision I made there and then would affect me for the rest of my life. I ran outside as my sister told reception that I wasn't going to have the abortion, and I rang my mum. Stop you crying, Samantha, I'm telling you, stop, she may stop. Little did I know that my mum had already knew where I was and what I was about to do because my sister already told her the telltale. And my mum had a team of Christians praying for me to keep the baby in the background. So I told my mum that I was pregnant, and she said that's okay and that she would support me. I told her that I was at an abortion clinic and that I ran out and that I'm not going through with it. We both cried, and Mum thanked God for changing my heart. So we headed home for a new and scary life ahead of me. We got home, and as the weeks started to pass, the abuse began to really worry me because I had a baby to protect now. One day he grabbed me and shook me so hard when he let go I couldn't breathe, and I went into a panic attack. That was it for me. I was leaving because I can't let my baby walk and see this abuse. I wanted to end the cycle in my life and in my family, not for me, but for my baby. I didn't want my baby growing up seeing this as normality like I did all my life. So I left, but the emotional abuse began to get worse and worse. The name calling, the nastiness. He would show up at my new house when I was trying to build a home for me and my baby. The threats to petrol bomb my house, stealing my house keys from my back door and sneaking in when I was sleeping. I felt so trapped, and I was scared to tell anyone in case they took my baby from me. Eventually, when I made it to 35 weeks pregnant after a routine checkup, I was sent to hospital with preeclampsia. I was so severely unwell from all the anxiety and abuse he was putting me through. He came up to visit me and he had to be asked to leave by the nurses because every time he came into my cubicle, my heart would start racing. I was terrified of him, but as much as I was scared to admit that I was afraid of him, I was even more scared of my child not having no father. I then went on and gave birth to my gorgeous son Zach. His name means remembered by God because that's exactly what he is. He is my light through all the darkness and heartache. He was born 5 weeks early by emergency C-section. He was so tiny I was afraid to even hold him. He was 4 pounds of absolute perfection. I didn't take to motherhood very quickly. I was diagnosed with postnatal depression, but I was determined to fight it and be the best mom I could be for my son. Zach's father was useless, but I wanted to give him a chance. Maybe he could be a better father than he was partner. I had to beg for help as I had seen him for major surgery, and when he did come to my house, the second Zach cried, he would hand him to me and leave. He wouldn't answer text or calls for days, and he was practically non-existent. When we went to register Zach's birth, the registrar asked me the baby's surname, and he nipped my leg under the table until I said his second name because he knew I wanted to give Zach my second name. The registrar seen me crying, but I think she must have thought it was baby blues or something, but in reality I just wanted someone to confide in. Eventually I started to grasp the whole motherhood thing, and then when Zach was about 6 feet old, I had a knock at the door, and it was a health visitor and a social worker. They had come to tell me that my child's father was going through addiction services and that he was addicted to methadone. I could do nothing but cry. It all started to make sense, not answering his phone, not wanting to help, or not being able to help financially. So they told me that they wouldn't be happy for him to have him unsupervised, and that if they did, they would be involved in our lives. So together, we set in place supervised contact was the only way of him seeing Zach. He never really asked to see Zach or asked how he was. He would sometimes call up unannounced, and I would ask one of my brothers to come over and sit with us so that we weren't left alone with him. This really infuriated him. It came to Zach's first birthday, and he landed up at my door with presents before Zach's party, and he asked could he take Zach unsupervised, and I told him that I was afraid of the social services being involved. He got so filled with anger that he ran at me, smashed his face off the radiator. I tried to grab Zach and run out of the house, but before I could run, he was punching me with my son in my arms. I was lying on the ground in the fetal position trying to protect Zach when he screamed. My little brother from next door heard what was going on, and he ran into the house to get Zach and take him to safety. He finally got Zach next door and rang 999. The beating continued for what felt like a lifetime before he heard the sounds and ran away. He had ruined my son's birthday. Everyone began to arrive to the party, but it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. I remember the policewoman telling me that I don't have to be afraid anymore. She told me that I was a survivor, and it was the first time I ever felt strength. She told me to stand up in court against him so he can't ever do this again, and that's exactly what I decided to do. I was terrified, but I stood up in court and I told them what he did to me, not for me, but for my son. And he got sentenced to 5 months in prison. It felt like it wasn't even remotely long enough for the years of abuse he put me through, but I was so proud of myself for taking that stand against him. After that, I never heard from him again. Having an absent parent can sometimes be a blessing in disguise, and I do believe that this was God's way of keeping Zach and I safe. I have to say, doing it on my own was damn hard, but every single day was worth it. I went on and passed my driving test and got the most rewarding job in a care home. Everyone who knows me knows I love old people. I leave a 12-hour shift feeling so blessed to have spent time with people who used to work so hard, and hearing all their stories about how they used to live their lives. It's nothing short of a blessing looking after people who used to look after us. COVID came and I basically moved into my workplace, and my son went to stay with my mum so I could still provide for him but keep my mum and him safe. It was the hardest 11 weeks of my life, but knowing my job role, I didn't want to risk making them both sick. After lockdown was lifted, we got on with normal everyday life, and it came to November 2021 and my mum got COVID. She took it so bad, it was extremely scary. After 8 days, she was admitted to hospital with her oxygen levels scarily low and severe high temperature. The doctor came around and told her that if her oxygen didn't start to pick up, he would be placing her on a ventilator. So I got in my car and I drove to my wee brother's house crying, and he told me to come to his church, which is church down in Fellowship. And I remember at that time they were doing a fast and a prayer for a couple of people, and my wee mummy was included in it. I started to pray for the first time in my life, and I said to God, God, if you're real, you'll save my mummy, and if you save her, I'll give my life to you. The next day I rang the nurse for a handover, and it couldn't be any more positive. Her oxygen picked up amazingly, her temperature had come down, and they were going to try and give mummy a shower. And I remember getting off the phone and I was like, right, God, I'm giving my life to you now. You held up your side of the bargain, so I'll hold up mine. And from that day on, I decided I was going to pursue God. I remember going to church with Zach, and I felt like I had something to be ashamed of for having a child out of wedlock. But my church welcomed me with open arms. They didn't see a woman with a child out of wedlock. They seen a woman seeking God, and I think no church needed to do the exact same. The Bible verse in Luke chapter 5 verses 32 comes to mind. Came not to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. I took my mum to get COVID for me to seek God. He was right there all along, accepting all my flaws and all. I continued going to church every single week and listening to people's testimonies, seeing what God has done in so many people's lives, did nothing but make my faith stronger. I will never forget the first ever testimony that I had ever heard in person. It was so different to people's testimonies that I had heard growing up. I thought you had to come from a Christian home, no flaws, practically no sin for God to love you. But after hearing a testimony, I realised that God takes you as you are, and He begins to do the work in you. We are all sinners saved by the grace of God. In Romans 3:23 it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I know I didn't live the perfect life glorifying God, and He knew that. He didn't leave me nor forsake me. So in April 2021, I gave my life to God, surrounded by people who seen me come out of the pits of despair. It was amazing, and I had the most amazing and welcoming church family. I went on to get baptised in May 2021, and I just spent my time pursuing God, building a relationship with Him and putting my trust in Him and His plan for my life. It came to summer 2021 and I got myself into a bad place. I was having really bad panic attacks. I don't know where they came from and I don't know why, but they were taking over my whole life. It was the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing before I went to sleep at night. I had gone to the doctors and I was rushed to the hospital. My heart rate was so high, I had supraventricular tachycardia, all from anxiety. Where did it come from and why was it here? And I remember saying to God, what are you doing? I'm trying to live my life to please you and I'm trying to build a relationship with you and you're letting me suffer like this. I knew it was the enemy, but I was blaming God because I knew He could stop it, but I couldn't understand why. I got out of hospital and not long after that I met my now husband Jordan, after knowing him for ages and ages. We were both Christian and we both wanted the same things. We went on a date that I almost didn't show up for as well. And wouldn't you know, I started to take a bad panic attack. But Jordan was so amazing and I brushed off as being too warm and leaving there. As the weeks passed, I was smitten and I knew that this was the man that God had made for me. We were going for a walk one evening and I started to take a bad panic attack and Jordan had asked me what was wrong, so I told him all about my anxiety. He grabbed me and took me over to the side of the river and he prayed for me, and from that day on I promised I'd never let my anxiety take over my entire life again. Months passed and Jordan asked me to marry him on the beach where I had so many amazing memories with my wee granny and granda and my family as a child. We had just went for a little walk to spend time with God and we dropped down to one knee. In the months in the run up to our wedding, the spiritual warfare was really hard. We were struggling mentally and financially with the upcoming wedding. We had a Bible meeting at our house one night and after returning from church we had seen that his mum had fell down the stairs and she had been placed in a coma and she was in hospital for over 3 months with a brain injury and she's still recovering to this day. We know that they were all attacks from the enemy because God has big things planned for us. In June last year we got married and it was the most beautiful day. I honestly had to pinch myself so many times because things like this don't happen to people like me. Not long into our new married life, we found out that we were expecting a baby. We planned to go our family, we were excited for our future. 10 weeks pregnant, I took a sore back in work and after a scan at the hospital we found out that our baby's heart had stopped beating. It's been a difficult time for us as a family, but God. Life every day isn't always a walk in the park like some people like to think the Christian walk is. Spiritual warfare is real, but so is our God, and He is so much greater than all the hardships we've ever had to face. When I question what God's doing in my life, I always open my Bible and turn to Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you hope and to give you a future. A couple of months ago, Jordan and I were at the cinema to watch that new movie, It Ends With Us, and I felt like it was basically my whole life being played out in front of me. And that's where I felt that God was telling me that it's my time to tell my story, and that's why I ended up doing this. But that's exactly what we want to do. We want to end with us, the generational curses, the pain, the trauma, the hatred and the hurt. What God has done in my life is nothing short of amazing. He's taken me from the pits of despair and given me a whole new life with hope and a future. I have so many plans for my future. I've always had a passion for helping people, especially the elderly. So I planned to do my nursing degree, something I wanted to do before I had SAC, but being a mummy came first. God has shown me in so many ways that through nursing I can be a light in people's lives, and I can't wait to see what else God has in store for me. He's given me the most beautiful, smart, kind son and a caring, godly husband, and now I know that no matter what I go through, I never have to go through anything alone again. Thank you and God bless.